Commander Rhea Morgan didn't mean to start a galactic incident before her first cup of coffee. But in her defense, the shuttle autopilot mistook the Draxol ceremonial welcome fleet for a traffic cone arrangement and landed squarely on the High Matriarch's ceremonial reflecting pool. She emerged from the smoke-dusted hatch trailing luggage, sunglasses too big for her face, and the kind of travel mug that screamed regret and caffeine. The Unified Stellar Accord's grand welcome chamber was a riot of droning hymns, phosphorescent banners, and species that looked like nervous sculptures. But all conversation died the moment Rhea clomped in, dragging her wheeled carry-on. "Sorry I'm late," she said, brushing ash from her jacket. "But someone filed my flight plan under minor diplomatic nuisance, which, frankly, is rude, if accurate." 14 species blinked at her in unison, including the jelly-bodied Ilvan representative, who immediately began pulsing in what her translator labeled as existential confusion. The presiding Kravathi AI host, a floating cube radiating passive-aggressive lighting, attempted to resume order with a 48-point agenda item list. Rhea scrolled idly on her wrist tablet. "Look," she cut in, "unless item 14 is fix the rock fight on Eleron Theta, we're wasting good oxygen." A Draxol tactician, 6 feet of armored thorax and a ceremonial blade mounted to his forehead, twitched in offense. "The Theta negotiations are in proper alignment," he snapped. "They've only been ongoing for 62 standard cycles." 62 cycles? Rhea blinked. "You've been arguing about a rock. Longer than we've had Wi-Fi." The chamber erupted in offended static, philosophical tentacle waving, and at least one legal prayer. That rock, more specifically the mineral-rich moon orbiting Eleron Theta, was under procedural deadlock between the Draxol hierarchy and the Ilvan Combine, who had spent decades debating legal ownership, metaphysical relevance, and the appropriate ceremonial footwear for survey landings. Into this mess, the Earth-based firm Terra Nova Mining Solutions had inserted several hundred humans, 5 prefab rigs, and a complete disregard for permits. They'd built a colony over the Ilvan's sacred Echo Reef, installed pizza ovens on the Draxol's memorial dunes, and, most damning, renamed the entire operation New Fort Rock Smasher. Rhea's job, apparently, was to explain this to the Galactic Council without triggering war or being incinerated by bureaucratic disapproval. "We sent miners, not missiles," she tried later in the breakout summit, while flipping through untranslated territorial maps. "They're not soldiers. Most of them are engineers who think social protocol means shaking hands without wiping on your pants first." A Kravathi arbitrator blinked green and muttered, "They built unauthorized housing zones. They built beer pong tables, too," Rhea snapped. "But I don't think that's a war crime." Unbeknownst to her, the Draxol Council had already convened a sacred tactical quorum and drafted a 912-page war proposal, complete with ceremonial font spacing and legal footnotes. It was, by the standards of their species, an act of ultimate aggression. Rhea, when handed the war proposal, scrolled halfway through, chuckled, and asked if there was a TLDR version. She then forwarded it to a defunct Seoul Union diplomatic. "Inbox with a note. Auto-reply. We are currently out of office due to Monday. Try Tuesday-ish." That alone might have ended negotiations, had not a Yilvan drone accidentally tuned into the human colony's loudspeaker system, where it was force-fed a loop of country music and something called Grill Battle Night. The Draxol response team mistook the miners' drone-operated pizza delivery service for siege drone deployment and attempted stealth observation, only to be welcomed with beers and declared winners of the Most Cosplay Effort award. By the end of Rhea's first day, 2 things were clear. First, that humanity was unintentionally annexing territory through sheer obliviousness, and second, that the Accord had no protocol for what to do when the invading force didn't know it was invading. Back in her temporary quarters, little more than a closet-sized oval room shaped like a giant egg laid by someone with a filing fetish, Rhea stared at the wall and muttered, "Well, at least they haven't shot anyone yet." A pause, then deadpan. "Unless you count that jelly diplomat who fell into a fondue vat." That might technically be culinary aggression. As night fell across the crystalline city world of Eleron Theta's diplomatic orbit station, one truth crystallized faster than the mineral dispute. The galaxy's greatest threat wasn't warlike species or rogue AI. It was a planet full of humans who considered bureaucracy a performance art and had just stumbled, by accident, into rewriting galactic law with a coffee mug and zero situational awareness. The war officially began at 0643 Galactic Meridian Time, though the humans remained blissfully unaware, having declared it Taco Tuesday and prioritized finding salsa over any known war protocols. Commander Rhea Morgan was halfway through a dry toast she'd microwaved into rubber when the Draxol High Command's Observation and Infiltration Unit Theta V touched down on the disputed moon. Composed of elite tacticians trained to replicate environmental textures and interpret aggression through the angle of a handshake, the unit deployed in perfect silence, only to be immediately mistaken by the miners as the new film crew for their makeshift reality show, Moon Madness, Mining for Glory. Within the hour, the Draxol were dressed in novelty aprons and taste-testing chili next to an open flame. Meanwhile, the Ilvan, ever the philosophers, sent in a fleet of sonic displacement drones designed to gently assert presence through resonant harmonic metaphors. The drones were immediately intercepted by the colony's Bluetooth network, which was still glitching from the last karaoke night. Within minutes, the drones were belting out power ballads and being choreographed by a man named Doug, who believed interpretive dance was a valid diplomatic language. Rhea watched the footage with a kind of paralyzed amusement, sipping synthetic coffee that tasted like burnt sorrow. "So, let me confirm," she said to her comms officer, a retired shuttle mechanic who now ran diplomatic security like it was a weekend hobby. "Our colony is surrounded by elite alien war units, and we've turned them into backup dancers and chili judges?" He nodded. "One of them just voted Barry's Ribs the best cultural experience." Rhea blinked, muttering, "The Geneva Conventions are somewhere crying right now." As the absurdity escalated, she received a formal complaint from the Cravathi Consensus, a 52-page document written in recursive binary accusing Earth of informal causality disruption and unauthorized bonding rituals. She responded with a selfie holding a peace sign and a caption that read, "Live from ground zero of intergalactic togetherness." P.S. Who knew spice tolerance was a battle tactic? The Accord was losing its collective mind. The Draxol demanded reclassification of the miners as hostile operatives. The Ilven launched a philosophical protest about how humanity was defiling the silence of space with emotional karaoke. The Cravathi just held more meetings, their solution to everything from warfare to lunch orders. But none of it registered. With the humans, who, mistaking a Ilven broadcast about impending escalation as a weather report, prepared a rain-proof gazebo and scheduled a luau. Meanwhile, back on the diplomatic station, Rhea found herself summoned to an emergency arbitration forum, which took place in a gravity-neutral chamber filled with species who'd collectively banned humor 3 eons ago. A Cravathi cube began, the proceedings with, "We are gathered to formally assess the sole entity's breaches of Accord protocols 17A through 101Z. Rhea, floating upside down with her thermos magnetized to her belt, raised a brow. "You sure this isn't just a really weird book club?" The Draxol emissary slammed a ceremonial document into the lightstream table, declaring, "Your species has weaponized unpredictability." Rhea tilted her head. "That's a bold accusation from a race that color codes emotional intent. You once declared strategic alarm over a sock color." The room darkened with tension as the Ilvan delegate began murmuring something in tones meant to unravel the psyche, which translated roughly to, "We demand restitution in the form of metaphysical withdrawal and symbolic kneeling." Rhea sighed. "Look, unless symbolic kneeling involves tacos and apologies written in glitter glue, I don't think we're making progress." Just then, a broadcast came in from Eleron Theta, an unedited live-streamed feed of miners, Draxol operatives, and even a few Ilvan drones participating in a limbo contest while blaring Earth pop music. One Draxel, shirtless and painted in neon, was attempting to explain tactical honor through dance. The chamber froze. Rhea shrugged. Guess we skipped the trial phase and went straight to the musical. The Kravathi's lights flickered as it struggled to comprehend. This cannot be protocol. Rhea floated closer and whispered, "Sweetie, this is our protocol." And with that, Chaos achieved something diplomacy hadn't managed in 6 decades: spontaneous unity. Misinterpreted aggression had become accidental diplomacy. Combat squads were now exchanging chili recipes. And Rhea Morgan, the only person, with neither a plan nor permission, had just made peace by way of barbecue sauce and Bluetooth interference. By the 3rd week of what should have been an escalating interstellar conflict, the situation had degraded so thoroughly into absurdity that even the Accord's emergency intervention team, 5 multi-limbed analysts encased in bureaucracy-proof exosuits, couldn't figure out if they were arriving at a war zone or a music festival. The energy pulses being fired in orbit as part of the Draxel's escalating siege tactics were mistaken by the human colony for a natural aurora display, promptly dubbed Sky Disco by the camp's unofficial DJ, who was technically a drilling foreman with a Bluetooth speaker and zero respect for alien warfare. The siege drones sent to impose a perimeter were intercepted and reprogrammed by a miner named Elena, who thought they were part of a remote pizza delivery fleet. The drones were soon serving pepperoni with a side of automated diplomacy messages like, "We value your hunger and your peace." The Ilvan, desperate to re-establish seriousness, initiated a formal gesture of cultural insult, a low-frequency resonance meant to trigger species-specific shame responses. Instead, the humans used it as a beat for a conga line. Rhea Morgan watched the reports flood in from her command pod, somewhere between disbelief and pure, exhausted admiration. "We've been under interstellar siege for 19 days, she announced during her daily briefing. And not only have we not noticed, we've accidentally improved cross-cultural relations through memes, grilled meats, and unlicensed DJ sets. Good job, team." Barry, the logistics officer turned luau organizer, raised a hand. "To be fair, we did run out of pineapple." "A true war crime," Rhea deadpanned. But the galaxy wasn't laughing. Across the Accord, high councils were melting down in synchronized panic. The Kravati consensus declared an internal emergency, summit to determine whether humanity was a genuine threat or just an ongoing software glitch in the diplomatic matrix. The Draxol, humiliated by the footage of their elite commandos doing the limbo under disco lights, proposed a retaliatory measure involving neural deterrent fog and ceremonial silence fields. The Ilvan issued a communiqué written entirely in paradoxes and metaphors, which translated roughly to, "We are being mocked by the noise of meaninglessness." Back on Eleron Theta, none of this mattered. The humans had built a floating beer pong arena in zero gravity and declared it the first peace games. The Draxol, now partially integrated into the colony, submitted a 4-paragraph tactical justification for why winning at Pong might restore their honor. One particularly uptight tactician had even drawn up schematics for optimal cup placement. Rhea, watching all this unfold from the observation deck, finally sighed and activated her emergency diplomatic terminal, a rusted relic she only used when things were truly out of hand. She composed an official statement to the Stellar Accords, Central Dispatch. "To whom it may concern, it has come to our attention that we are currently at war. Please advise on appropriate forms for submitting a ceasefire request via karaoke." She didn't expect a response. She got 6. 3 of them were contradictory. One advised self-dissolution. Another declared her temporarily classified as an unquantifiable cultural hazard. The 6th was just the word "Y" repeated 400 times in varying font sizes. Things hit critical absurdity the moment the Draxel siege captain, Admiral Vroth, recently crowned champion of brisket cook-offs, stood on a repurposed ore platform and declared peace unilaterally by shouting over a bass drop, "Let it be." Known, the hierarchy recognizes the cultural supremacy of smoked meat. That might have been the end of it, but of course someone had to ruin everything by checking the actual mineral that sparked the whole conflict. The colony's junior geologist, an overworked woman named Kim, who had only joined the expedition to pay off student loans, released a report confirming that the glowing rock wasn't a rare energy source after all. It was just caffeine-rich, lichen with a psychedelic side effect on the Ylvan and a mild buzz for everyone else. Essentially, intergalactic war had been waged over space coffee mushrooms. Rhea stared at the report for a solid minute, then muttered, "I swear to God, if this ends with us launching a Starbucks franchise, I'm defecting to Mars." Within the hour, the Accord dispatched another delegation, this time led by a furious gelatinous ambassador, a Cravathi logic cube that had developed a flicker, and one Draxol philosopher warrior who simply asked for the chili recipe. But it was too late. The siege had turned into a festival. The war had become a catered diplomatic accident, and Rhea, a mid-tier logistics officer with a badge, a mug, and a talent for chaotic survival, now stood as the most effective peacemaker. The Accord had never meant to authorize. The summit was a disaster even before Rhea logged in 14 minutes late, wearing pajamas with tiny raccoons on them and holding a grilled cheese sandwich like it was diplomatic ammunition. The Galactic Emergency Council had convened a final resolution summit in a floating cathedral of bureaucracy orbiting Eleron Theta, its crystalline architecture pulsing with procedural anxiety and ceremonial disapproval. Every attending delegate hovered, slithered, or radiated into place with solemn dread, except for the human envoy, who slid into her chair, feet up on the table, and greeted the council with a cheery, "Sorry, the toaster was doing that thing again. What did I miss?" Another intergalactic war over coffee? The Ylvan philosopher, who had prepared a 7-hour rebuke in harmonic stanzas, barely got through his opening metaphor before Rhea cut him off with, "If you're going to intimidate us with poetry, you'll have to speak faster. My lunch is getting cold." The Draxol commander sitting next to him visibly recoiled but said nothing, possibly because he was still digesting 3 helpings of pulled pork from last night's unofficial pre-summit mixer, which had inexplicably replaced their honor ceremony. The Cravathi consensus, now blinking erratically due to a syntax conflict caused by too many human idioms, projected a statement. Human activity constitutes a quantum-class diplomatic hazard. Cease engagement or expect reformatting. Rhea nodded thoughtfully, took a bite of grilled cheese, and replied, "We'd like to submit a counter-proposal in the form of a group hug and a joint venture in artisan beverages." Silence followed. The galaxy, built on 10,000 years of sacred order, cracked at the seams like bad drywall under the pressure of improvisation and snack-based diplomacy. Then came the final blow, not from Earth's military, not from a human weapon, but from Kim the geologist, who stumbled into the summit live stream feed, holding a glass jar of luminous blue fungus, and said, "Hi, sorry, just confirming the Eleron Theta mineral. It's basically a naturally occurring espresso plant with mild hallucinogenic properties. It's not a strategic resource. It's a glowing mushroom. You've been fighting over a mushroom." The Ylvan immediately entered a fugue state. The Draxol began chanting in a tone usually reserved for mourning failed tactical deployments. The Cravathi's lights blinked in furious Morse code until they reset themselves. Rhea leaned forward, brushing crumbs off her file. "So, if I understand this correctly, we've all spent 3 standard months, 24 ships, and the galactic equivalent of a national budget arguing about a space latte." She paused. "And somehow, humans still came out looking like the only adults in the room, which is deeply alarming for everyone, including us." The Accord imploded. Not literally, but close. Protocol collapsed as one species defected in protest, another drafted a treaty using emojis, and the Cravathi suggested replacing all diplomatic processes with machine learning improvisation, a suggestion made while malfunctioning, but still ratified in panic. The unified Stellar Accord, once the epitome of structured sanity, was now being ruled by accidental precedent. Rhea, for her part, did nothing extraordinary. She went back to the colony, sent the Draxol Admiral a six-pack and a thank-you note for not vaporizing Barry during the conga line, appreciated, and filed her final report under incident, non-protocol termination via cultural misunderstanding, and barbecue. Within 3 cycles, the event was immortalized in Accord records as the sole variable complication. Earth's influence spread not through conquest, but confusion. The Ilvan adopted sarcasm as a new philosophical sub-branch. The Kravati began analyzing humor algorithms. The Draxol established an honorary order for survivors of culinary war. And Rhea, she was offered 3 ambassadorial roles, 2 leadership positions, and a commemorative statue that she politely declined in favor of a spa weekend and a nap. The final clause added to the Accord, now known across the galaxy as Clause 14Z, read simply, "If humans are involved, abandon standard protocols. Engage directly. Expect chaos. Prepare snacks." And so it was that humanity rose not with force, brilliance, or destiny, but with karaoke, chili, and the unparalleled terror of people who mistake war for team building. As one Ilvan scholar famously remarked in the cycles to come, "It is not the species who wage war that frighten us most, but those who do not notice they've already won it."